but with the power on, and just have it, readily accessible so you don't have to dig through your bag or whatever.
I think it was dinosaur.
I'm sorry?
A dinosaur phone. This is not a smartphone.
That's fine. No problem. Okay. So thank you all very much for coming to this talk. I will begin with a quick introduction to me. And I've been a Clairvision student for about 7 years, so I'll tell you a bit about my experience. Then we're going to do a short, 3 to 4 minute exercise where we will use our phones. And then we'll move into the Clairvision fourfold model of settled bodies, which a couple of people have alluded to today. And then we're going to talk about how to kind of undo the fearful curse of some of the challenges that can come with being so engaged with technology as we are on a daily basis. And then that's pretty much what we're going to cover. And then we'll have a few questions at the end. I'm just going to set my little timer here to give me an idea of where I'm at. So my name is Felicia. I've been a student of the Clairvision School for about 7 years. I first became a student in 2005, December of 2005. At the moment, I live in Marin County. I've actually been there since 1995. Did a BA in psychology through Dominican in San Rafael. I've also done the Green MBA program, so I have an MBA in sustainable business. And currently, I'm a PhD student in mythological studies with a depth psychology focus. This is through Pacifica Graduate Institute, which is in Carpinteria, just south of Santa Barbara. I go down there once a month for a few days of classes. What I'm learning in the mythology program is basically about the evolution of human consciousness through time in a variety of cultures. In relationship to the divine, but very much interwoven with that in relationship to the world in general. So the first flyer I saw in my email box about the Clairvision School was a talk given by Samuel Sagan, the founder of the school, and the title was Spirituality and Technology. And I thought, spirituality and technology, that's really interesting. I've never seen those two words so close together before. And I was just, wow, I wonder. So anyways, that talk that Samuel has given is about the long-term implications of, for example, nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and eventually virtual reality. And that's a really interesting talk that I refer you to him. That's not our talk today, but I just thought it was fascinating. And the interesting thing to me also was that as a spiritual school, you would kind of sort of think, oh, well, we just got to deal with technology, it's there, okay, whatever. But really, that's not the case with Clairvision. It's very much the opposite. There's a way of engaging with technology that's helpful and healthful. And what can we do in terms of being spiritual practitioners to help influence potentially the evolution of technology as technology evolves along with human consciousness in a positive way. So the benefits I've received from the Clairvision School in the past 7 years include a metaphysical toolbox. You've heard some people speak about that today. A much greater ability to feel inside and outside. So, for example, if I'm sitting at a desk and I have a computer tower right here, right next to my right calf, today I'm going to be more immediately sensitive to how that impacts me at a very subtle level over a long period of time than I might have been 7 years ago. And I would also say that there's a way we all get that information, whether we've been trained or not trained, but that there's a way that we sort of block that information out, and through doing the Clairvision techniques, I've learned to sort of turn that faculty back on, bring it back to the consciousness. I can also feel, for example, going for hikes. One of the really cool things to me is when I'm out in nature, I have a much greater ability to feel the environment that I'm exploring in subtle ways, versus before I always felt some sense of, I wanted to feel it more, but I just kind of couldn't quite feel it. I felt a certain separation between me and my head, looking at the pretty plants and a beautiful landscape and feeling some sense of longing that I wanted to be more a part of the landscape. And now I very much have that experience. There isn't that sense of, and I'm over here and the plants and the beautiful landscape is over there. One of my first experiences with Clairvision was at an intensive, and I stood on a little bridge over a stream, and I just happened to notice that I could feel the water moving underneath the bridge. It felt as though the water was moving through my body, and similarly with the wind, when it would blow, there's a way I can feel that, and it's not blowing past me, it's like through me. It's really profound to be able to have that greater level of connection with the environment. So now we're going to just quickly do our little exercise. It's 3 parts and just about a minute, give or take each. So if you have your cell phone handy, you don't need to leave it at this moment, but rather just make sure it's handy so that you can quickly grab it, so you can set it next to your feet or wherever it's comfortable for you.
I don't have a cell phone.
If you don't have a cell phone, do you use a cell phone very much, or?
I do, but I don't have it.
So then actually it's interesting, if we did the longer version of this exercise, I would have people actually mind using the cell phone, because you might feel that there's a way that you automatically engage with it. So if you want to just pretend you have the cell phone, as other people actually do engage with their cell phone. If you have a computer with you, you could also decide to engage with that as well. Or instead, I wouldn't make it too complicated by doing 2 different things. So the first thing we will do is just sit quietly. This is not an official Clairvision meditation. This is a very simple, generic going inside. So we're just going to sit with our feet on the floor as you would, in a comfortable position. You don't have to worry about having a super straight back or anything. Just be comfortable. And we'll close our eyes. And we're really just going to begin to feel the inside of your body. Starting with the breath, watching the breath, feeling it move in and out of your lungs. Noticing any places of tension. really tune in and feel it. I mean, for me, I've been carrying my phone around in my pocket today, which I never do, particularly just because I don't want a computer that close to me. And so I'm conscious of it as I go through the day that way, and I, set it outside for a little while when I'm sitting down, and sometimes I put it back. But I like to kind of do that as an experiment sometimes, just to see if I do notice, see what I do feel. So we're going to move on to the word technology. I was curious about the etymology of the word, so I looked at the online etymology dictionary. And it is originally from the Greek technologia, meaning a systematic treatment of an art, craft, or technique. The words high technology weren't actually put together and used until 1964, as far as we can document, or high tech until 1972. Now, with regard to kind of the derived from technologia, systematic treatment of an art, craft, or technique, there's a way that I've heard techniques such as clairvision referred to as a technology of consciousness. And by that original derivative, systematic treatment of an art, craft, or technique, clairvision very much is a technology of consciousness. So I will show you a little bit of that technology of consciousness here with the fourfold model. Let's see. This first little rectangle I'm going to draw here represents the physical body. And I'm going to draw what may or may not look like a rock to represent the physical. So if we think of minerals, they're a great immediate example. And it doesn't mean that when you tune into a rock from place of vision, you can't feel some of these other layers we're going to explore. But in general, rock, physical. And then I'll draw another box. Normally I would use green, but we're going to use brown because that's what we have. Etheric. And this is a brown plant to represent ethericity. Equates to prana, or G, the layer of life force. So when you get acupuncture, for example, and they're working on your meridians, that would be corresponding with the etheric body in the fourfold model. And then I'm drawing in the astral block. And this is a little animal to indicate that animals too have astral bodies. So, layer of thinking and feeling. So for example, I'm up here giving a talk, sending information from here to there, and the information would be an astral thing. If I'm nervous about standing in front of a group of people and talking, that also falls within, in this model, the astral layer. And then the final block in our model. Also keep in mind, a model is a model. It's not meant to be concretized or taken, too literally. Here's it. It's the map, not the territory. But this would be the higher self layer. So this is where, in this, we'll point out it's a human-centric model. Humans developed this model. So this is where humans are different in that they have a higher self, capital E, ego in this model. It kind of makes me think, well, what about animals? They have some sort of spiritual principle, blah, blah, blah. But, it's a human model. We're going to go with the human-centric version. So what we're looking, and let me draw one last little bit here, which is just to indicate that, and I think Andy or Tracy may have discussed this earlier, that physical, etheric, collaboration that takes place such that the upper complex of the higher self and the astral lifts off from the lower complex. This gives the lower complex, particularly the etheric, the opportunity to go into chaos, to go into rejuvenation state. So you might have heard that when people are deprived of sleep, they go crazy, in no uncertain terms. And so when you sleep, these two, this one basically lifts off from this one. And this is where the whole thing with technology and engaging with computers, etc., really comes in. Because there is a way that the astral, this is where we would basically put a phone. It is a physical object that in some ways is an extension of the astral body. So you might have had the experience of, where's my phone? I'm not sure where my phone is. I know it's around here somewhere. Or, I'm waiting for somebody to call. I wonder when they're going to call. Maybe I should check my email. Maybe they sent me an email instead. Maybe they sent a text. Maybe I didn't hear it. It's like, there's a way that this becomes your device. You might have heard a few people today speak about the device. There's a way that we are actually crystallizing in a sense that might not be helpful, our awareness over here, outside of ourselves, in this concretized version of the astral body, essentially. I think you said a doing machine or something. To-do machine. And that's exactly what this is. It's basically like an amplifier of your astral body, or can be that. If you've got one of the older phones that's, kind of a little bit simpler and, maybe you don't do as much with it, maybe you don't use it as much, there's a way that you're not quite as much putting so much of yourself over there on that thing. So how do we begin to kind of call ourselves back from our machines? Because what happens, I'm sure many people have had the experience of going to work or otherwise being busy and hour after hour after hour of like, I've had the experience so many times of like, the computer ate my brain. Like, I feel like I've fallen into it and I'm in there somewhere and I'm home and I'm trying to just like collect myself. And it takes a while. It takes a while to like call myself back. So how can we instead avoid having our head get eaten by the machine in the first place? I just had like a bunch of thoughts all at once, so I'm going to try to get back to my notes.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
That was a really good way of putting it, and I experience that daily as well. And I was realizing when I go to work and I work with other coworkers, and we've gotten to the point where we're working and we don't even acknowledge each other, because we do, but you barely acknowledge the person across or in front of you or around you. And so you're not even connecting with the people around you. And when I'm in that world, there's a lot of stuff going on between the people that are in my office and things. And then, there's a certain overload. When I've gone too far, of course, and I come out and I'm exhausted. And I go, well, why am I so exhausted? Well, of course. But yeah, that calling back is just like, it takes forever.
Right.
You go and just pass out.
So the challenge with, modern people in a modern environment is that there is this way that the astral actually, and this is true of humanity in general, but especially now, the astral bites the etheric, the astral grasps the etheric body. So this part grabs this part during our waking hours. And that can become problematic. We're literally, in a subtle way, pulling energies down in here. You can think about how, an idea grabbed me, and that's not just a matter of speech. Or my emotions ran away with me. Somebody pisses you off, you find yourself on the road and somebody cuts you off and you're just like, and you're like gonna smash the back of their car, or whatever it is. It's like that thing and that is the astral gearing into your lower complex and just making you. So how do we undo ethereal listeners of the astral, of the graph of the astral on this, the energy, the life force part of ourselves. There's a number of ways, happily. So some of the quick ones you might think of, basically any etheric experience, a spa experience, a massage, an enzyme bath, a hot tub, listening to music. Music can be a very etheric experience, depending on the type of music, some more than others, and depending on how you listen to it, whether you feel the music or whether you're like in an analysis kind of space. Really, anything beautiful stops the mind. This is where the mind would be, is in the astral body, ordinary mental consciousness, which sometimes you might hear OMC for ordinary mental consciousness. This is where that is in the astral. So anything that stops the mind, a sense of, you might walk into the lobby out here and be like, oh, wow, this is such a beautiful painting that Yohanna did. In that moment, there's a stopping of that constant. So having flowers on your desk is very helpful, for example. There's studies, I'm sorry? Flowers or a plant. There are studies that actually show that greenery within your line of view has healthful benefits in residential and commercial in office settings. And then when we look more at, and hiking, of course, nature has an ambient etheric. So it's like you're in a big etheric when you're outdoors, and the more intact the environment, the better. So there's a way that nature's helping you to hold this upper part that otherwise is just you and your astral body. In an ambient etheric environment, you have help to hold this upper part. So you kind of think of a farmer and they're outdoors a lot. You don't think of them as a very intensely astral person, whereas you think of somebody walking down the street in a city, there's just like a lot of that mindy stuff going on. So then, of course, we come to the techniques of the Clairvision school. Some people today might have mentioned uplifting. So this is where you are doing subtle body building, which is pretty literal, really, actually. You're developing muscles at a subtle level such that you can find a place above your head to rest and pull up energies from above. And that helps to undo, again, that kind of impacting down is what we call uplifting. Night practice, which some people did earlier, you bring consciousness into this interface between the astral and the etheric. The more consciousness you bring in, the more rejuvenating the quality of your sleep or doing a night practice. I remember once I actually had a massage, and I was sort of newer in the Clairvision work, and I thought, what would happen if I put my awareness in my third eye? And it was just completely changed the massage. I walked out in the lobby afterwards, and the person who had given me the massage therapist was like, wow, what was that? That was so weird. It was like this whole space landed during the massage. I had no idea that was going to happen. Channel release. Tracy mentioned channel release in her talk. So it's basically like a very vigorous washing of your hands, but with a subtle level of awareness. So the easiest thing to do if you're actually in an office setting is time's up, is to go to the restroom sink, and you can, use in the Awakening the Third Eye Weekend workshop, which is coming up on June 9th and 10th, you'll learn an introduction to the channel release technique, and along with beginning Awakening the Third Eye practices. And when you put those two things together, you have a much greater, more vigorous, more effective channel release, which is very helpful when you're sitting at a keyboard. So another thing you can do is if you're using a laptop, try and use an external keyboard. And the more you tune in, the more you can start to feel, having my wrists set on the battery and on the circuit board feels different from having it on just kind of the more simplified keyboard over here. And even so, hours after sitting there for hours on any keyboard, there's a certain something that you feel like you could kind of go and maybe not have on you anymore. And it helps. It really does help to, again, sort of wake up your etheric body, to make it more fluid, to make it more rejuvenated. So the results of doing these various mitigating techniques, whether it's a plant on your desk, listening to nice music, whatever it is that you need to do, developing your perception, is that you do develop your perception, basically. You begin to feel, oh, that tower next to my right calf is a little bit too much. I need to put it on the outside of my desk. And maybe even that's not enough. Maybe I need to enclose it in some kind of container. As Tracy was mentioning with your place where you meditate, maybe having that electrical outlet, right here while I'm meditating isn't the best idea. You start to begin to kind of develop a discernment. Once I put a laptop on my lap in a car, it was my friend's laptop, I got in her car, took her laptop off her passenger seat, put it on my lap, and within 5 minutes I was having this bizarre existential angst. Something's wrong. And it took me like another 5 minutes to realize it was the laptop on my lap. I realized the thing was still on, and it was creating this bizarre effect on my energy body. And I was just like, and as soon as within like a minute and a half after taking it off my lap, I felt much better. And that said, when you're shopping for a computer, you can tune in, you can feel different computers are gonna just, it might be a very similar model, a whatever, HP, Dell, whatever it might be. It might be very similar, but for whatever reason, the way they manufacture the components has a slightly different effect. More of a false note or more of a, okay, I can be around this thing for a couple hours and not feel trashed. And then with regard to gaining greater ability to interact with technology, so not just mitigating harm, but also interacting with it more effectively. I personally have not gone through this training, but Clairvision does include a training called Supermind. So with the astral body, there's a level that's, this is kind of ordinary mental consciousness. There's also the super mental consciousness, super astral, much more high, refined, packed. So Supermind deals with super astrality. And that's really interesting. I mean, it's really fascinating. It opens up a whole different can of worms in terms of, I've talked to some people in the school who are programmers and who are able to engage with technology in a much faster and cleaner way. While I personally have not been through the Supermind training, I can say that there's a way that I am able to engage with projects with much less friction. Still, sometimes I didn't eat right that day, I didn't get enough sleep or something, and there's more friction. But assuming everything is kind of normal, I have a greater ability through years of experience with meditation and clarification through ISIS, etc., which Annie's actually going to be doing a talk about ISIS in just a few minutes, such that there's less friction. I can be more clear when I pull myself together and I know I've got something to get done. I can cut through things much more quickly. And finally, I'll mention that we haven't spoken much about perhaps the most important box, which is really not a box, which is the higher self. Capital E, ego in this model, they use the word ego with a capital E, which equates to the higher self, the part of us that's divine. This completely changes absolutely everything, and we can do it in a moment. As we begin to develop the ability to, we've all had some level of experiences with our own higher self, of course. And just as Yohanna was talking about the ability to at will engage with a space of creativity, when we develop the ability to at will engage with the higher part of ourselves, period, we discover that this is not just one other little component of our makeup, but rather it's much, 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 much bigger than all the rest of this. And as we clarify the rest of this, the light of this part can start to penetrate the lights of these lower parts that maybe could use some light from above. And then the whole game has changed. It's completely different. So again, we are having I'm sorry?
How does that interact with technology?
That's a really good question. There's absolutely no way, just given the nature of that, it's difficult to put words to sort of this part of ourselves. So what that might be for you might be absolutely completely different from anybody else on the planet who's ever lived. I mean, it's really that different. So it would do it really no good to even speculate, because it's going to be different from person to person. But we could come up with an example person, a sort of hypothetical person who maybe their highest self is let's say imaginarily sending an impulse for them to write a particular program that's going to, let's say, be beneficial to humanity in some way. We could again hypothetically say that the more in touch with that part of themselves that that person became with the higher part of themselves, the more they're going to be able to sort of land that impulse from above down here at a horizontal level.
Clean energy, for example,
Yeah, that would be a good example. Clean energy, I mean, there's a way that clean energy and spirituality, period, I think, kind of go together in a really interesting, it's a whole other discussion anyway. So, the Awakening the Third Eye Weekend Workshop is June 9th and 10th. It's usually $180 to $200, something like that normally. Today, if you do decide you want to sign up for that workshop, you can sign up for $150. If you're a student, $120. There's also correspondence courses. There's a standalone correspondence course. They're called knowledge tracks, which are on the website, and we may or may not, are we selling knowledge tracks today?
We've got the computer set up so that they should.
Okay, great. The knowledge tracks are really interesting. I highly recommend checking them out. They are a really comprehensive body of information that include a large number of talks. So for example, there's one called Subtle Bodies, the Fourfold Model, where they go into a lot more depth of this model. And tons of talks that go into great depth, as well as experiential exercises that you listen to on CD. So you can take it home and go through it at your own pace. And there's a number of different ones. I actually just did one called Death, the Great Journey, which was totally amazing. I hadn't even done it in the 7 years I've been a student, and I finally did it, and I was just like, wow, I should have done this like day one. It just puts everything in context. And so I think that's pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions? Ready to go home and engage your computers?
Why is it the technology has just such a grip on us when the struggle of the astral and the ethereal is complicated, is compounded by the excessive presence of technology that we understand, we know it in energetic fields. Despite that, why does technology, gadgets, and gizmos have such a hold on the consciousness?
That's a great question. I'm sure pretty much everybody in this room would have their own perspective on that. Personally, I would say that, I mean, for me, I mentioned I have an MBA in sustainable business. Part of the reason I went into the sustainability field is, as well as being driven from an ethical perspective and a moral sort of tack, I'm still also really fascinated by innovation. So like, for example, when I saw Samuel Sagan's flyer saying spirituality and technology, to me that sounded innovative. That sounded really interesting. And so I think that there's something about human beings that we're fascinated by innovation, by creativity. Yeah.
Yeah, as you're speaking, I just can't help it. Just something comes to space for me. A friend of ours is a cell phone, he's an electrical engineer and develops cell phones, and right now he really focuses on the antennas and network. And he was telling me about when cell phones went from 3G to 4G, the magnitude of change that happened was a 3G program, like and one engineer could actually conceptualize the whole 3G network, could actually hold it and understand it, and then get teams of people to do it. When they went to 4G, it's so much more complicated, the technology of it, that you need teams of people, each holding different aspects. That it's just too big for one person to conceptually hold the whole model of a 4G network. And it's like technology is this magnitude, it's changing magnitudes of things, and it's taking human consciousness is being molded by this. We're molding to these greater levels in order to engage the technology that we're creating. So there's that marriage too, not just of how do we engage in it, on this level, but it's molding as much as we're developing it, it's molding our consciousness as well. So
And that's almost a secular debate. That's a secular debate. But what I'm trying to ask is, energetically, the electricity, or the flux, and the maybe just focusing on the energetic impact of these gadgets on our astral etheric bodies and higher self bodies. Largely, it's disruptive and dissonating. And we experience it also. Too much time on the computer, too much this, too much that. We come back home to ourselves. Despite that, as a consciousness, we are still for lack of a better word, either addicted or still possessed by it. It's a possession. And therefore, I'm asking, why is that? Why is that happening? Because it is experientially contraindicated. But despite that, it's a possessory. And I know you're saying that it is changing our, as a part of evolution perhaps, it is changing making our consciousness more complex and more involved perhaps. But that's a different, I think, yeah, if you like, because I'm just, there is a consensus that it is not only just health-wise harmful, perhaps. That's another research question, another debatable question about how harmful on the health level is, but on the energetic and the different levels of a body consciousness, it is not beneficial.
I would just say that I think possessed by it is a really good and totally apt way to put it. And I could very easily equate that with, or at least, parallel with that, when you get possessed by an emotion. So you, let's say, a very typical example is you're going home for Thanksgiving and, oh, my family, and it's just that those things that just land and do get a grip on you. And you want to have a different attitude. And you should have a different attitude. But no matter what you do, it's like kind of hard. And, you got to go through all this ISIS and stuff to be able to just have a normal conversation with your, family member as though they're somebody off the street rather than like somebody that you have all this baggage with and blah, blah, blah. And really, honestly, if we look at it through the lens of this model where the astral grips the etheric, I think it becomes a little bit more clear how we can be gripped in this fascinating, hypnotic way by technology and by the newest thing. We all know people who they run to Best Buy or whatever the local electronics store is the moment the next thing comes out. Personally, I would say it also goes back to your own sense of self and your own sense of self-determination and can become a very big topic by itself. Also, etherically, the more robust your etheric body is, the more it can kind of effectively manage its interface with the astral body. And so the less, if you think you've just had this amazing spa experience, there's a way that when your phone rings, it does feel like an interruption. It does feel like, oh yeah, no, I'm not feeling that right now. Versus if you're in the middle of your day, where's my phone? I gotta answer my phone. Did my phone ring? It's like there's a completely different way that you're engaging with it. So the point of it being that the more we can build up our subtle bodies, for example, the etheric in particular, and bring more consciousness to our etheric, awaken our etheric, then the less of that gripping, parasitic, possessing, sort of version of engaging with technology there is, and the more we can match it. I think Michelle actually the other day said, how can we can learn to match the technology rather than letting it eat us, just like the whole rest of the world will come in and eat us. So I think we're pretty much out of time. But thank you all very much for attending this talk. And Annie's going to be speaking about ISIS. Oh, that's something.
Well, I just think what's really fascinating that the technology to communicate with the other side, that folks working on that kind of level of success.
The other side meaning what?
The so-called devil.
Oh,
And I think that is really, when you talk about the astral planets, this is more than one world, spiritual beings. So that I think is really exciting.
Yeah, and technology is just going to keep getting more refined.
They have it already.
Who's there?
On the other side, they've already developed the technology. They just have to catch up with that.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Big boss is a big boss.
She got the big ones.
She's the other.
So we're going to have a 10-minute break, and we're going to come back for a talk with Annie up the Grove, who's sitting in the back. She's going to talk about the ISIS technique, which is one of the main techniques of the Clairvision school. So we have
matching the astral. Is that
You might have told me, but I
about getting dominated? Feeling that winning, it's like change direction.